more than 30 newly discovered 2,200-year-old skeletons could finally help to reveal who wrote the ancient Dead Sea Scrolls. Remains found near the site where the scrolls were discovered suggest the bodies were linked to an celibate Jewish brotherhood known as the Essenes. The Dead Sea Scrolls have fascinated scholars and historians since the ancient texts were found around 70 years ago scattered within a series of caves in the West Bank. Thought to have been written between 200 BC and 100 AD, the scrolls inscribe some of the oldest known foundations of the Old Testament. Despite experts citing the texts as among the biggest archaeological finds of the 20th century, their origins and authorship have remained a mystery for decades. The Essene were an ancient Jewish religious sect or brotherhood that flourished in Palestine from the 2nd century BC to the end of the 1st century AD. The New Testament does not mention the groups, and ancient accounts from scholars and philosophers of the time sometimes differ in significant details. This suggests a strong diversity among different Essene communities.The sect clustered in small monastic communities that generally excluded women. Property was held in common, and all details of daily life were regulated by officials. The group's numbers were never large, with estimates putting them at some 4,000 at their peak. Ever since their discovery, a number of suggestions have been put forward as to who created or oversaw the texts, including soldiers, craftsmen, people from the Iron Age, or Bedouins. Now an analysis of remains found in 33 newly uncovered graves could help experts to understand the mysterious text's history. Analyses of the bones support a previous theory that the scrolls were written or guarded by members of a celibate, all-male Jewish sect called the Essenes. The mysterious group flourished in Palestine from the 2nd century BC to the end of the 1st century AD. Like the scrolls themselves, the graves were found in Qumran, an archaeological region in the West Bank along the northwestern shore of the Dead Sea. Anthropologists from the Israel Antiquities Authority in Jerusalem radiocarbon dated the bones, revealing they are about 2,200 years old, around the same age as the scrolls. But it was not just the age of the bones that has linked them to the ancient texts.All, but 3 of the 33 skeletons were identified as probably male, based on factors such as body size and pelvic shape. The remaining remains may have belonged to men too, but not enough skeletal evidence exists to be sure. Of the 30 skeletons identified as male, each was aged between 20 and 50, or possibly older when they died. These parallels suggest the skeletons were once members of the mysterious Essenes crypt, the researchers claimed. I don't know if these were the people who produced the Qumran region's Dead Sea Scrolls, project scientist Dr Yossi Nagar told Science News. But the high concentration of adult males of various ages buried at Qumran is similar to what has been found at cemeteries connected to Byzantine monasteries. Given the lack of signs of injury on their bones, the men were unlikely to have been soldiers, the researchers said. Dr. Nagar presented the findings last Thursday during the annual meeting of the American Schools of Oriental Research. As there appears to be no women in the burial, the group was likely a community of ideologically celibate men. Child proportion and adult age at death distribution match the common desert monasteric societies of the subsequent periods, the researchers, led by Dr. Nagar, wrote in their paper. Previous finds at sites around Qumran have suggested it was founded more than 2,700 years ago. The people of Qumran abandoned the area after war tore the region apart, returning to reoccupy it for 200 years, up to around 68 AD. An early theory on the creation of the Dead Sea Scrolls claimed that members of an ancient, celibate Jewish sect, the Essenes, lived in Qumran. The theory says the group either wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, or were caretakers of the legal, philosophical and religious documents. Over the past 30 years, many other theories have been put forward, including that the scrolls were written by Bedouin herders, craftsmen and Roman soldiers. Discovered between 1946 and 1956, the Dead Sea Scrolls are a collection of 972 ancient manuscripts containing parts of what is now known as the Hebrew Bible, as well as a range of extra-biblical documents. They were first found by shepherd Qumran as he searched for a stray among the limestone cliffs at Qumran on the shores of the Dead Sea in what was then British Mandate Palestine, now the West Bank. The story goes that in a cave in the dark crevice of a steep rocky hillside, Qumran hurled a stone into the dark interior, and was startled to hear the sound of breaking pots. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in caves in the limestone cliffs at Qumran, pictured in the West Bank. Venturing inside, the young Bedouin found a mysterious collection of large clay jars, in some of which he found old scrolls, some wrapped in linen and blackened with age. The texts are of great historical and religious significance and include the earliest known surviving copies of biblical and extra-biblical documents, as well as preserving evidence of diversity in late Second Temple Judaism. Dated to various ranges between 408 BC and 318 AD, they are written in Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, and Nabatean, mostly on parchment, but with some written on papyrus and bronze. The scrolls are traditionally divided into three groups. Biblical manuscripts, which are copies of texts from the Hebrew Bible, comprise 40% of the whole.